There we go. Okay, I'm Daniel. I work for a company called Chilcotin Rehabilitation, and I'll talk about our WRFI project and what we're trying to achieve. So, first, a little bit about CCR. It's Central Chilcotin Rehabilitation, and it's a partnership between 3 First Nation communities: Chilcotin, Chilcotin, and Tsilhqot'in First Nation. The company, actually give you some history on the company. The company actually was created by those nations to deal with some of the problem forests that we were experiencing in the Chilcotin area. First, there was the mountain pine beetle, and then we had the mega wildfires of 2017. And industry can only go so far. You need somebody that could take a bit more risk and to start dealing with the problem areas and really start managing the forest. So they started this company as the forest management company of the Chilcotin, you could say. And well, with the backing of the 3 nations, we tend to take a lot more risk on projects, and we don't always do things just for profits. Sometimes it's job creations or just forest management in general. So I'm pretty excited to be part of this. So the shared caretaker area of CCR, because it's 3 nations, it makes up for almost 4 million hectares in size, so it's massive. Well, it stretches from Williams Lake all the way to the coastal mountains, and it's mostly makes up for lodgepole pine, some Douglas fir as well. We've had some crazy fires in the last 10 years, and we're kind of dealing with the aftermath of it, and we're trying to be as proactive as we can as well for future fires. This year we had probably another 100,000 hectares that burnt. We had 10 years in that area too. I think we lost 80,000 cubic meters in approved cutting permits. Just that from an economic perspective is huge. So it's definitely something we want to avoid. We kind of tend to focus on three main things that industry wouldn't necessarily always do. So reforestation is one big thing. After the fires, a lot of the areas doesn't come back naturally, so we do tend to try to plant most of those areas. I think on average we've been planting almost 10 million trees per year. And then we focus on fiber utilization to try to utilize as much of the dead fuel as we can, because there's vast amounts of it. And then wildfire mitigation and risk reduction and job creation, because these communities, they rely on forest as a resource, as the main provider for families. So like we try to maintain job creation for all the communities. I think currently we have roughly, let's say 100 employees that are steady, roughly 50 with hankers, and then probably 70 with heavy equipment. And then we have probably another 100 that are seasonal employees with the planting side. So fairly large scale, very large scale in my mind anyway. And now we kind of go into the project. So the project, well, okay, back up a little bit. The 2017 wildfire happened. It burned huge areas. And then after the fire, we had the salvage activities happening by industry, sawmill, and they're only targeting the Douglas fir stands. So most of those areas were salvaged. And then the pine areas that burnt as well were unsalvageable, or they were seen as such for the longest time. And now I've had, and Percy over there, he's the CEO of CCR, my boss. He'll try to not screw this up, but but anyway, we've been pressured by the communities to try to treat the burnt pine areas as well. Although they've been proven very difficult to salvage from a sawlog perspective, it's almost impossible. But then we found opportunity with the WRFI money to try to provide some scale to it. And then, so we started to look into these stands and what they look like. So most of the stands look like that. So you had the pine beetle happening, and then I would say half of the stand was dead when it burnt. The other half is a juvenile stand that died from the fire. And then the aftermath of the fire, they look like this. And we got tens of thousands of hectares that look like this, probably hundreds of thousands. So how do we deal with it? We can treat it and not utilize the fiber, but then the money wouldn't go very far. So then we started to look into how can we maximize the value that's there, go as far as we possibly can to first create as much GDP and job as possible, but also to create or do the wildfire mitigation for this site, because like as you can see in the picture, we have a really healthy stand coming in from underneath. So if we would just leave it as it is, it's very likely to burn again, and that all those trees in the region in the understory would die. So it's really a liability as it is right now. So we want to make this stand into a benefit for the future and not a liability. So, and those are the areas that we want to treat, but then because we want to make it scalable into a scalable project, the biomass side of things, well, bioenergy, first of all, that would be perfect product for bioenergy, but they don't pay as much for the product. So pulp is really the strongest market to tap into for that type of tree, but the pulp market does not accept char in its product, so that's a big challenge. But then we started this and piloted a flail chipper to knock the char off, and it was very successful. So that was the first phase, and we actually had to really convince pulp markets to accept some sample loads to try it, and they were very well, we had to convince them quite a lot. And then after a while, they finally accepted the sample loads, and they're like, okay, we can try a couple more sample loads. And then after like 10 sample loads, they're like, we want as much as you can give us. And that was really good because pulp, well, the pulp market is almost twice as strong as a bioenergy market. So we then could scale this project up and move on to phase 2 and apply this on a more of a landscape level, or that's what we're currently doing. And we have a large-scale contract with Caribou Pulp in Cornell to continue this initiative. So now we're focusing on building a cost model to set benchmarks on what the treatment cost is going to be, and then provide a bit of a productivity benchmark and then scalable solutions to wildfire risk reduction, and leverage the industry that we have in place so that we can go as far as possible with the resources we have. So now we're on the large scale phase, which is kind of just started. I think we've treated roughly, well, 500 hectares to date, which is quite large still, but we want to go further. We've started to build a really solid productivity data analysis to track the cost of every phase, from bunching, skidding, shipping, trucking, and then also sampling data on the, I'm probably way past my time here, but I'm going to continue anyway. So yeah. So now we're also doing sampling on the fiber that we're recovering to help the provincial government create tenure systems that would actually support this type of treatment, because the tenure system in place right now is largely built around saw log utilization and not secondary products like this. So that's been a huge challenge, but we're working very closely with both pricing and our local district to move forward on that. I think I'll wrap it up pretty quick. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but it's an exciting project, and it's really created a lot of employment for our communities, and it's starting to shape out to be something really good for CCR and our communities. You covered most of that. Yes, I think I'll just finish off there. Thanks a lot for everything.